Honestly, if I knew all this earlier, my medical school journey would have been way less stressful. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Andres Polychronis, and just 1 month ago I actually graduated medical school. So now that I had time off and time to reflect, I clearly know what I did right in my medical school journey, and I also know what I'd go back and change if I could go back. So in this video, let's break down each of the 4 years of medical school, and for each year, I'm going to tell you what I'd change if I can go back. So let's get right back into it. Or let's begin. If I could redo the first year of medical school, from day one, I would have bought the USMLE Step 1 book. Now hear me out. I know as a fresh medical student, the last thing you want to think of, especially the first week of school, is your Step 2 exam. Now, for those of you who don't know, your USMLE Step 2 exam, you take it after your second year, and it basically covers everything you learned in your first 2 years of medical school, the preclinical years. Now, I don't want to buy this book, or if I can go back, I wouldn't buy this book for the purpose of just starting to study for Step 1. No, that's not what I mean by that. But this book is an excellent resource. Just think about it from a logical perspective. If the USMLE Step 1 exam tests you on what you learned in the first 2 years of school, obviously what you're learning in the first 2 years of school is going to be in this book. Don't get me wrong, the professor slides and your notes are great and all that, but at times, like, you're learning so much information at once, it can get confusing and you can get lost really easily. So this USMLE Step 1 book is a great source to learn to do better on your medical school exams, because it has all these diagrams, has all these charts, and it shows you what's important to learn. So you're not going to be wasting your time learning your low yield stuff. Your high yield stuff is going to be in this book. So that's everything you need to know. So I'll definitely go back and buy this book, because there's so many times in my first 2 years of medical school where I was just confused. I was confused by the professor notes. I didn't know what they were talking about in class or in lecture. But if I had this book, I can just open the book and say, oh, we're talking about this enzyme or whatever. Just, you'll learn. Another thing, if you buy the Step 1 book early and use it as a resource to study, you'll get used to the layout. You'll get used to the pictures and the diagrams. So that way, after the first 2 years of medical school, when you do have to study for USMLE Step 1, you'll be familiar with the book. So it won't be like you're studying fresh for the first time. You've seen the book 100 times. It makes studying that much easier. So buy the Step 1 book your first day of medical school. You can use it as a great resource. You'll become familiar with it. And then when it comes time to study for your USMLE Step 1, you'll be ahead of the game. You'll already be familiar with what's going to be tested. You'll know all the high yield topics and you'll crush it, all right? So that's tip number 1. Now this leads perfectly into what I'd do differently in my second year of medical school. Now in my second year of medical school, if I can go back and change something, what I'd change is that I would rely less on brute memorization and try to really understand what I'm learning, right? I wish I understood this earlier, but in medical school, you relearn the same subjects or the same topics over and over again, and you're basically tested on the same things over and over again. So what I mean by learning things over and over again is that, let's say you're learning about the kidneys. The first time you see it, it's going to be presented as just the kidney itself. Then when you're learning about heart failure, right, the kidneys will then come back into play. You see topics in different light, right? If I could go back, I would have taken things a little slower and really try to understand concepts, not rush through them. And this would have been really beneficial, because it would have saved me a lot of times when I have to go back and look at it again. I wouldn't have done so much relearning. And this is especially helpful when it comes to Step 1 studying. So let me just get into a little more explaining about this. Let's say you have to learn about the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, right? The ROS, right? So like, it's fine to memorize the pathway, right? You have low blood pressure, so your kidneys release renin, right? And renin converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. And then angiotensin 1 gets converted to angiotensin 2 by ACE. And then angiotensin 2 stimulates the production of aldosterone. And then your blood pressure goes back to normal, right? That's all fine and dandy, right? You'll pass the test if you memorize that. But it's important that you really understand the whole process going on, right? So if you really want to understand something like this, you would have to understand what causes low blood pressure. Is it heart failure, right? Is it dehydration? Then from there, don't just say aldosterone gets released. Where does aldosterone get released from? Angiotensin 2 goes to the adrenal gland, and then the zona glomerulosa stimulates the production of aldosterone. Aldosterone, it controls water and sodium retention, and that's how you maintain your blood pressure. So by understanding all this and connecting all these topics, not only do you understand the ROS system, you understand adrenal disorders, right? Adrenal gland disorders, kidney failure, heart failure, blood pressure medications. So it's important to make connections, and you make connections by truly understanding what you're learning. In essence, this would have saved me a bunch of time. Instead of learning topics individually, you're making connections, and the connections just help things stick. So now moving on to year 3 of medical school, if I can go back and change something, it's so simple what I would have done, and it's like, I really wish I could go back with all my heart to change this. What I would have done differently is I'd go back and relearn my study habits. So up until your 3rd year of medical school, or the past whatever years you went to school for, even high school, even grade school, go to class, you learn what the teacher's teaching, whether it's on a lecture or a PowerPoint slide, and then based off that, that's what you're tested on. But in years 3 and 4, which are the clinical years, right, where you do rotations, that's not how it works. So the way years 3 and 4 work in medical school is that you go to either a clinic or a hospital for 6 to 12 weeks, depending on what rotation you're on, right? You do core rotations, which are family medicine, which is 6 weeks, and the rest of them I think are 12 weeks: psychiatry, OB-GYN, surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, right? So those are your cores. Then at the end of each core rotation, you take a shelf exam, which is administered by the NBME, which is the National Board of Medical Examiners. And these questions, or this exam, basically ask you questions in regards to the rotation you just did. What I tried to do, which was a huge mistake, was I would read a textbook and then I would do questions, right? So I would try to study a textbook, not knowing really what to study. And then from there, I would do the assigned questions. Now, the questions are very important. So this is how you do things. This is how I would study. So this is the one thing I go back and redo. So what I'd do is I would do questions first. There's a website called UWorld that has about 1,200 questions per core rotation, and you have to do the questions. But I didn't want to get a bunch of questions wrong, but that's what you have to do. You have to expect to get questions wrong. Through your ego, you're going to get questions wrong. So what you do is you go into UWorld and then you start doing questions. And you're going to get a bunch wrong because you don't really have that much preparation, but that's okay, because when you get questions wrong, you have to learn from your mistakes. So every time you get a question wrong, it tells you what topic was studied, and then it tells you an explanation. So what I would do is after I get a question wrong, I would make note of what's being tested. And then what you do about whatever, you do box of 40, you see what's tested, and you're going to see repeated topics being tested. From there, once I see what's being tested, then I can go to the book and then I can really hone in on what to study. Because if you just study a book, you're just studying random topics that are probably not going to show up on your actual shelf exam. So by getting questions wrong, learning from your mistakes, and really honing on your mistakes, know what to expect, you know what to learn in the book, and then you can always go back and get those questions right. In my case, I was doing things the opposite. Like I said, I was trying to learn the book and then do questions, and you really don't have that much time. So I actually failed a couple shelf. Now, when you have to actually study, you want to keep your resources to a minimum, no more than 2. I use the Step 2 book to study for my shelf exams, as well as Amboss, which is really good. The reason I don't want you to use too many resources when you're trying to learn these topics is that you want to build familiarity with whatever resources you're using. That way, when you have to go back and learn something real quick, or you want to go back and look at something you already learned, you have that familiarity and you can just see it and remember it, right? Year 3, what you want to do is that first off, you want to do questions, get them wrong, learn from your mistakes, choking up, and then once you learn from your mistakes, kind of make note of what topics are being studied, study those topics, and then you'll be more than ready for the shelf exam. That's what I changed. Now, last but not least, we have our 4th year medical school, which is honestly the most chill year of medical school. The only thing you have to worry about is your USMLE Step 2 exam, which is a big exam. Just like Step 1 covered your first years, 1 and 2 of medical school, Step 2 covers your years 3 and 4. So it's basically all the shelf exam you just took for your core rotations. It's all those exams bundled up into one. Test you on your family medicine, pediatrics, internal medicine, surgery, OB-GYN, right? So it's very difficult. You have to do a lot of hours of studying, a lot of preparation, but by the time you take that exam, you'll feel more than prepared. And you've taken all the shelf exam, like we just said, you've seen all these patients, so you'll be more than ready. Now, what they don't tell you about Step 2 is that right after Step 2, you still have Step 3. But my tip, or what I can go back and change, is I would take Step 3 as soon as I could after Step 2. And I say this because a lot of the material on Step 3 is the same as Step 2. So you save so much time. You don't have to relearn all that information because it's fresh in your mind. And in Step 3, you generally take it during residency. And residency is a stressful time. You're exhausted. You're working long hours. Even though you're getting paid to practice medicine, you still have to find time to study for Step 3, which is extremely difficult and stressful. So by taking Step 3 soonly after Step 2, you save your time on studying, right? Because it's really fresh in your mind. And the only thing you have to really do is brush up on your ethics, biostats, and this thing called CCS cases, which are computer-based case simulations, which is just an extension of what you already learned on Step 2. So if you take Step 3 shortly after Step 2, that gives you a lot of time to just focus on being the best doctor you can be. You'll enjoy your intern year a lot more, I should say. It'll be a lot less stressful, and you don't have to worry about finding time to study. I understand that not a lot of people, or not everyone, can actually do this, but if you do have an opportunity to take Step 3 shortly after Step 2, do it, and guarantee you'll enjoy residency a lot more. So there you have it. That's everything I'd change if I can go back and do medical school over again. Please, guys, drop a comment, as many questions you may have. I'll try to get to as many as I can. And if you found this video useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you always stay up to date on my videos. And I can't wait to see you guys soon.